Alright, so today we're going to be taking a look at how to print text using a printing plate. Now, one thing we need to remember is that when we are printing text, that it is going to end up being mirrored or show up in reverse. So what we're going to do here is trace over our design and then make sure that it is backwards on the printing plate. So what I'm doing is using a soft pencil. You would have seen me point out that this is a 7B, a very soft pencil, and I'm tracing over all of the outer contour lines of my design. Right, with this particular design, I ended up making my design on the computer, and then I'm transferring it onto the block. So once it's traced, I'm going to place it upside down, and then simply kind of scribble over the back of the paper, and you can see that the graphite is transferring from the paper, tracing onto the piece of linoleum that I am using in order to create my printing block. All right, so when I'm doing this, I can tell that I'm doing it the right way because it is also backwards on this particular design. Once I've got it transferred over onto the printing plate, I'm going to end up using a black Sharpie just to really reinforce and clean up the lines. I'm using a Sharpie because it shouldn't smudge on the linoleum printing plate. I'm just carefully kind of tracing over the lines, looking at some of the important elements there, and then I'm also actually going to be filling in, especially in the interior area where I need to be much more precise and make sure that my lines are lining up correctly, right? That they're correctly spaced. Right? Even including some of the small little details like the little bumps in the B is really important, and then again reinforcing those outer lines. Now it is important to make sure that you give the ink a minute or two to kind of dry, because when you're using a Sharpie on top of the linoleum, it does stay wet for a second and it will transfer onto the back of your hand. On the outside, I'm just using a basic cross-hatching technique to kind of block it out because I don't need everything. Okay? The next step here is I'm going to kind of get rid of some of the parts of the design that I don't need with an X-Acto knife at some point, but I'm going to be using different lino cutter blades. They come in different shapes, U's and V's, in order to take out different types and amounts of material. There are also different sizes, right? So when I'm starting, I'm typically using a much smaller V shape, and then I'm gradually kind of taking bigger scoops or bigger blades in order to kind of remove the larger amounts of area, and especially in the background space. Okay? So as I'm going through, right, I'm pushing always into my bench hook, which is that wooden block that you see underneath the green linoleum. And this way is if for some reason the blade slips, it's going to go into the wood and not into the side of my hand. Right, I'm cutting it out, making it a little bit neater, and then again just kind of cleaning up any of those outside edges before I start moving into those interior details. With those details, I'm going to again start with a much smaller, more precise blade. Now the tricky part here is that when you're using a smaller blade and you're trying to remove larger areas of color, it gets a little bit more difficult because you're going to end up having the texture of the parts that don't exactly get completely removed. Right, so it's something to keep in mind, right? That the smaller the blade, right, the more likely it is that you're going to get some of that residual texture when you get to the printing phase. Right, so it's again very carefully, always making sure that I'm cutting away from myself. I'll often turn my work as well in order to kind of get those nice fluid curves, so that the lines are nice and crisp, right? And you'll see I'm going back and forth between different tools depending on the amount of material that needs to be taken out and where it is that I'm working, right? So it's normal, right, and probably even encouraged for you to have a couple of knives, if possible, nearby in order to be able to just quickly move back and forth between the different parts of your design. Okay, so as you can see, right, I'm just working through those finishing touches, right, and now it's going to be time to get the good copy started. Okay, so I have a piece of glass, so you can see the reflection of the camera there, and I'm going to start rolling out the ink. Right, I'm only ever rolling in one direction. Okay, so I always try to roll away from me in order to get better ink coverage on the roller, or what's also known as the brayer. And now, I'm spinning the printing block around in order to get decent coverage. I'm going to grab a damp paper towel and very, very carefully kind of clean up the edges as much as possible, trying to make sure that I'm only touching the edges of the printing block with clean fingers. And as you can see in the reflection there, I'm also wiping my fingers down. I'm going to take the paper, curl it back, roll it over the printing surface and hold it in place using a scrap piece of paper. I'm going to put that down in behind, and I'm going to use my Baron and rub in a circular motion in order to be able to remove, not remove, but to transfer the ink from the printing block onto the good copy piece of paper. So as I pull this one back, you're going to notice that the ink coverage actually isn't that great. It's kind of splotchy, but you can see that it's a mirrored result, right? And as we go from one to the other, right, original to backwards and then back to the right way again. Okay, but I have to reprint it because it didn't. The ink coverage wasn't quite good enough. So I'm going to put on a little bit more ink with the brayer. Grab that paper towel and wipe down the edges. Make sure that it's nice and clean. Right. That also means drying those edges off and trying to make sure that I'm very, very careful with my fingers not to transfer and make things really dirty, setting things over to the side where it's clean, and then again grabbing my good copy paper, rolling it over, holding it in place with a finger, grabbing a scrap piece of paper again, placing it over top and using that circular motion in order to transfer. So again, this is using a fair bit of pressure. I'm pushing down quite hard. I'm rubbing in a circular motion to get even coverage, right? But again, as I take this one off, what you're going to see is in the top left-hand corner of the B that there was a little bit of ink that didn't cover, but it's still looking a lot better than the first one, but I'm still not happy with it. So I'm going to go and try this one more time. Loading up the Baron, brayer, with ink, okay? And I'm going to again go through that process, making sure my hands are clean, roll the paper down, scrap paper, use the Baron and rub vigorously and hard, but making sure that the paper does not move around on the printing plate. Otherwise you get a ghosting effect, which is never attractive. So we're going to make sure that we're holding the paper and the printing block securely in place. And now as I pull this back, oh, it's stuck, pull it back, right? Again, now you're going to be able to see this design so much better. So there's the first one with the splotchiness, right? Missed that one corner, and then print it on the third time. All right, I get a much cleaner, more refined print. All right, so here we see the mirroring effect, right? So on the far left, there's the original from the printer, and then the cut image that I did on the linoleum, which is backwards, so that when I print it onto the good copy, which we see on the right hand side, it is again the right way around. So as you're creating your printing plate, you have to remember that the text needs to be backwards. Best of luck, and can't wait to see what you come up with. Bye.